Hello and welcome to another episode of Growing Organically for Wholesale Markets. Today we will be talking about weed management. Perhaps the most important episode of the video series. In the Organic Growers Group and when growing organically, there is no approved herbicide. As a fellow farmer once told me, you cannot eliminate weeds. You simply have to get them to a point where they're manageable. We're going to start off today's episode by joining Richard Moyer in Russell County, Virginia, to discuss some small tools and ways that he manages his weeds.
So knowing your crop as far as the ones that are most sensitive to the weeds and being prepared to take care of them is important. So one of the things I like about this tool, it's called a Loco wire weeder, is that it'll go in between crops. I got this from Allison and Paul Wiedeger, All Natural Farm in Kentucky. Steve and Becky Wolf, they have a new business locally. And they have a number of farm supplies and products, and so I check with Steve and Becky and see if they can get it. But I use this in the greenhouse a lot. It's got the small end here to go in between. Plants are really close spaced, and the larger end here. And actually, once you get going, if you have a fine seed bed, you can really pretty quickly go and do this. So if you have, these onions are planted kind of close. These are either 3 or 4 inch spacing. And what I'm doing now is I'm going through and I'm killing some young weeds that are coming up here. We have mulch that's on here, we have rotted leaves that are here, and they keep down most of the weeds, but they'll come through once and kill out these initial young weeds when they're real little like this. Oftentimes that will take care of it. And it does take some time, yes, to come through and do this once, but onions are a crop. They can lose 50% of their size in the first few weeks if they're shaded. You know, they just have a little bit of leaf on them. They don't have much leaf at all, and they're easily shaded out. So if we can control weeds in the onions, we end up with a lot more crop produced, a lot more crop to sell.
Although not preferable, you can use your hands to manage the weeds on your farm. For large-scale farmers, this is not ideal. We're going to join Jason in Sprouting Hope Community Garden in Marion to discuss some of the ways to manage weeds on a larger scale farm.
All right, so it looks like we have some tools. We're gonna see how they get used. I'm not even sure what this thing is. You mind talking a little bit about what they are?
The stirrup hoe, or hoop hoe, is some people what they call it, and it's got blades along this edge here, coming up the sides a little bit. And this is called the Rogue is the brand, Rogue hoe. I call it a shuffle hoe. And what you do is you're using all arm, and the blades of the tool are kind of just sliding in the soil, and you're just kind of scraping the surface. You're not going deep like you would when you're tilling, so you're keeping the integrity of the soil structure. And it's really good to do, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks after you till, because that's when you till, you're bringing up a lot of the weed seeds up to the surface of the soil, and then all those will germinate after about 2 to 3 weeks. And if you come in with the scuffle hoe, the soil is nice and loose. It takes very little energy to just run this blade along the surface, and you'll just kill all that new growth from those weed seeds coming up. The leaves we use to mulch pathways and in between, like squash, big plants like squash and zucchini, winter squash. That's what we'll use the leaves to mulch. Thick layer, about 8 inches or so, to really suppress the weeds. The wood mulch we use in pathways only because they're nutrient negative for the first 3 years. They're sucking nitrogen out of your soil if you put it in your soil. But the wood mulch you can get for free from the power company or anybody cutting trees down will mulch it for you and bring it out. And this is a great way. Putting 5 inches of that will completely suppress the weeds for the year. So this is the plastic mulch that you can lay over your beds. We're using this in this pathway here to suppress the weeds in the walkway. Here we've got the paper mulch alternative, and that's nice because over the course of the year it starts to break down to where by winter time it'll be mostly broken down. You can just till it in the next year. So this is a bed of garlic that we planted last November. It's spring now, and what we're doing is putting down a thick layer of compost on top to add a lot of nutrition for the garlic as well as suppress the weeds. This compost is sterile, meaning that it has no weed seeds in it, so we can use it as a mulch and spread it out over the garlic like so, and then kind of mix it around the plant and use it as a weed suppressor.
In our next episode, we'll join David Lay in Hawkins County, Tennessee, to take a look at how he lays down black plastic, another great way to manage your weeds. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time on Growing Organically for Wholesale Markets.